I bought my dream guitar. I never thought that I would actually be able to afford this, but I've wanted this since I was 13 years old. In this video here, I'm going to smatter in a little bit of playing here and there, but I want to give you the history of why this is my dream guitar. A very odd, yet somewhat funny maybe, misunderstanding that of a guitar that I thought was this, and then the full-on reason as to why I'm buying this right now, or I bought this right now. Let me straight up, this is a really weird video for me to make, but I've always been asked to do like a little bit of a history on me for guitar and stuff like that. Can you give me some of your guitar history, which I hate talking in videos, but this is just such a special occasion to me that, I figured, that's not a problem. I can do that. No one will watch this video anyway, and it could be a little long, so I'm sorry for that. But I'll just say I grew up in Halifax, Nova Scotia. Main store that I went to back then was called Music Stop. It was a smaller chain, but there was a couple of them. It was, I think in 2007, bought out by Long & McQuaid, which is the bigger chain here in Canada. But I started playing guitar December 26th, Boxing Day here in Canada, 1994. The store that I went to, like I said, Music Stop, my friend and I used to go there all the time. And if you've seen some of the videos I've made in the past, you'll be talking about, there was this little, I don't know what you want to call it, like cafe that was in the store. And like they had sandwiches, I think coffee and soup and stuff like that. But it was right next to where the guitars were, at least the more affordable guitars. That a 12, 13-year-old or 14-year-old would be able to, go there and look at without the jerk that was behind the counter. It was only one jerk, but the jerk behind the counter going, "Get away from there." But because of that, there were like older gentlemen, the old guys. When you're young, the old guys spouting crazy things. They'd always be talking about things. I learned a lot from listening to them, thinking they were crazy because I was young and stupid. But, I learned a neck shouldn't be completely flat. I learned how to tune a guitar, always up to pitch, never down to pitch, tug on your strings, reset everything in the nut, pull the slack, stuff like that. And it's just things that I've carried forward. And to me, really wish I could go back to that time and spend a little more time, maybe ask some questions, because those little things that I've learned really, really benefited me as I, went through my, guitar journey or musical journey, and would have been better to have a little more information. So the reason I'm saying this here is in 1995, my friend and I remember we went into the store, had this glass counter that went all around, like guitars like on racks in the middle and then all that stuff. But on the glass counter, they had these catalogs. They had Gibson, Epiphone, Fender, and Jackson. There was more than that, but those are the four that I remember. It was 30 years ago. Give me a break. But I remember asking, Gibson, whoa, can I have the Gibson catalog? They're free. They were free. You just had to ask, and they go, yeah, here you go, man. The jerk that was behind the counter, it was only one, but the jerk that was behind the counter gave us the Epiphone catalogs. Because we would never buy a Gibson, you know what I mean? A 13-year-old kid, what do you want the Gibson catalog for? You know, it's free. So I remember being still excited. Hey, Epiphone, yeah, I can't afford these guitars because I'm 13. So we went over to the guitar section. My friend was, looking at the guitars because he was left-handed, and he's like, there's about 2 that I can try here. But I remember looking through the catalog. I remember looking through the catalog hoping to see an Explorer. I didn't see one. I think I saw a Flying V, but I didn't see an Explorer. And I remember vividly going, whoa, what guitar is that? That's the coolest guitar I've ever seen. And it was an Epiphone Les Paul Custom. But I piqued the interest of one of the older gentlemen, poked his head over. That right there is a Les Paul Custom. They call that the Black Beauty sometimes. And he said it's meant to be a 1950, probably said 57 or something like that or whatever. But he said a 1950 Les Paul Custom. Black Beauty. And I just remember my 13-year-old brain going, Black Beauty. Whoa. And I looked around the store and they didn't have any. And throughout time, or as my time, went on, I never saw them in stores. Like, it was very, 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 very rare. So in my mind, it stuck. That's a very ultra rare guitar. You won't find it. But I knew 1950s Gibson Les Paul Custom, Black Beauty. Black Beauty often is referred to, they refer to the 3 pickup version as that. But 13-year-old me says this is the Black Beauty. So that catalog and that piece of information stuck with me. And the fact that I never saw that guitar made it a rarity to me, made it something that to me was you can't get. It's unattainable. Then the 1996 catalog came out. Let me tell you, that was like our Bible for a little while because it had that Explorer in there. I'm going to put a picture up on the screen here of the Explorer. This is what the Epiphone Explorer was. And I was like, oh my God, there's no pickguard. It's just like James Hetfield's. Except for there's a tremolo. What? The zebra pickups? I still want it. And you never saw that. I bet you it's really hard to find that guitar because they probably didn't make that many. But it also had the Flying V that I ended up buying, which I absolutely loved until I didn't. But it still had the Les Paul Custom. And I continuously saw that. So, again, that's ingraining that into my mind. I continuously looked at that page going, I will one day buy that guitar. As time went on, I had it in my mind. 1950s Les Paul Custom. It was one thing that I kept noticing whenever I would actually see a 1957 Les Paul Custom, or even like some of the 58s and stuff like that. It had these tuners on it. You know what I mean? It had these tuners. It didn't have Grovers. And I think that's something that stuck with me because, like, when it comes to, I want a 1963 Les Paul Custom, a Murphy Lab, because I'm just obsessed with them right now. And the one reason that I'm like holding back is because it has Grovers on it. Grovers are fantastic tuners, but to me, I'm like, you know what? I wish it had Clousons, because Clousons are really cool. Anyway, as time went on, still didn't see Les Paul Customs in stores. 2007 rolled around. I'm in a position now in my life where I've got money. It's not a lot of money, but to me, it was a lot of money. And I started buying Gibsons. I bought an SG Standard with the Batwing. I bought 2 Explorers, 2 Flying Vs, Firebird Studio, and I thought I was Dave Grohl, even though I didn't want to be Dave Grohl, but I was like, I'm Dave Grohl! And I also bought a Les Paul Studio, and I paid the extra like $100 or $200 to get gold hardware. It was white, and it had gold hardware, and I thought it was really cool until I started playing it going like, why don't I like this guitar? I don't bond with it. And I didn't like that guitar. Those 2007, to me, a lot of the ones that I bought, except for the SG Standard and the Northern Jumbo, which was a custom shop Southern Jumbo made for the Canadian market, which is why it was called the Northern Jumbo. Those are the only 2 Gibsons that I had that weren't oversprayed with nitro. So basically, if you have overspray, you play it, and then like a half hour to an hour in, the neck feels like there's a whole bunch of gunk all over it, and you wipe it with your sleeve, you're good for another half hour, but it wasn't pleasing to play. So I eventually got rid of them, and I started buying Paul Reed Smiths, and I was obsessed with Paul Reed Smiths, because I don't know, I thought it was Daniel Johns, because I don't know. And I was obsessed with Paul Reed Smiths. And I ended up with 8 core-line Paul Reed Smiths, most of which were 10 tops. I thought they were fantastic. But at the same time, I always thought, I need that Les Paul Custom, but I need to give Les Pauls another try. And I figured, I bought the cheapest Les Paul at that point. I bought the cheapest. And I bought the more budget-friendly Gibsons and treated them like they were $10,000 custom shops. And in my mind, when I owned those, because I spent my hard-earned money on it, those are the custom shops. But they weren't. So I eventually ended up getting a Gibson Les Paul Traditional, which I absolutely fell in love with, and it actually turned me against. I would play that, and then I would play my Paul Reed Smiths, and I'd be like, why am I playing my Paul Reed Smiths? They look great, they're mathematically perfect, but I don't bond with them anymore. So I fell out of love with Paul Reed Smiths. Eventually, I found a way of getting a Gibson Les Paul Custom. It was a 1988 Les Paul Custom Showcase. So it was the red Les Paul Custom that you've been seeing on this channel. I got it. And I loved that thing. But it was not this. I knew it didn't have the cloisons. And this was what I wanted. I changed the Grovers, because they were just like the roto grips. So I changed them to the roto grips that had the keystone buttons on it. And I was like, that's one step closer, but it's not right. And that guitar was fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. But it was not this guitar. So right now, this is March 2025. I'll probably put this video out on March 31st, 2025. In April 2024, the other guy on this channel, Kevin, bought a Gibson Les Paul Custom 1959. And I've always, because I wanted the 1950, what I come to learn as the 1957 Les Paul Custom, because I wanted that, and I knew the pricing, and I knew the pricing of all of the historic reissues or the custom shop reissues, I stayed the hell away from them. Do not touch. I touched the, I played the Gibson Les Paul double cut special figured, and I was like, wow, this is a really nice guitar. And I didn't buy it. And it high glue construction, but it had Grovers on it. And I think that's why I kind of shied away from it. But he came home and said, you need one of these. You need one of these. And I thought, you know what? I'll go try one out. Enter the 1958 Les Paul Standard. I tried this, and instantly, I believe I went like this. Uh-oh. And I was able to actually put it back on the wall. And I did the responsible thing. I came home and I talked to my wife. And I said, we have a problem. I want to get a very expensive guitar. And it's probably going to lead to more expensive guitars. I want to know if you're going to be okay with this. And my wife is the best. Absolutely the best. And she said, yeah, you know what? It's you don't normally... I would normally just buy the guitar and then, bring it home and she'd be none the wiser, I guess. But I did that and she recognized the importance of it. She said, yeah, that's fine. So I did some trading and I bought this. So, it helped out with some of the cost. So I got this. And then less than a week later, I did the same thing and I got this. And then 2 weeks later, I traded in 7 guitars and I actually got this without spending any money. I still don't understand, but it happened. This is the same guitar that Kevin has. Mine has a little more flamage, but his is more important to him. This is more important to me. Flamage, there's no flame envy. Here's the thing. When it came to those guitars, if you look at how I looked at my Les Paul Custom Showcase Edition, which I still had at that point, I would play that guitar and I would say, it's not that guitar. It's not the guitar that I want. These guitars, when I played them, I didn't forget about the Les Paul Custom, but it was just okay, this is reassurance that I absolutely have to get it, but these guitars are the greatest things I've ever played, so it's okay if I hold off on getting that. If I never get it, I have these guitars here, and oh my god, they're fantastic. But the one thing I thought was, Murphy Lab, I can play my guitar for years and age it on my own. You know what I mean? It'll age naturally. That's fine. Then there was something that happened in my life, which is personal. It's someone in my family. So something happened, and I needed a 1960 because I needed to feel like Joe Walsh. But I went into the store and they had this. And what happened with my family, with someone in my family, has to do with dementia. And it was hand in hand to when I went into the store and I said, I want to get a 1960. And the guy said, we have a 1960 actually in stock. It's a Murphy Lab. And I was like, Murphy Lab. But the moment I saw this guitar and kind of put 2 and 2 together, which maybe that doesn't make sense to most people, but with all the cracks in the body and cracks in the mind and stuff like that, I put those 2 and 2 together. And I had transferred over dollars to my MasterCard to buy it, and we'll just say that my MasterCard and my bank thought I was a thief for some reason because I transferred that money out of my savings onto my MasterCard to buy this, and for 4 days I had to keep going into the store to try and buy it, and they would say on the phone, yeah, oh no, everything's cleared, and then I would get to the store and would be declined, and it was not a fun scenario. So, it took a while to get this guitar, and I think that's kind of one of those things that makes this guitar extra special to me, because of all of the different cracks and stuff like that that are in it, and the fact that it, made me go through that ordeal. So, Murphy Lab, this was my first Murphy Lab, and I completely have changed my mind on Murphy Lab because you feel all of the different things. You feel all of the different checking and stuff like that that's on the neck, and it's something that while I'm playing it, I'm like, wow, that's really neat. That, you know what I mean? And it's something that it makes me interested in playing the guitar a lot more. Which doesn't mean that I don't like the VOS stuff or it's any less important, because after that guitar, I still bought a couple of other guitars that were not Murphy Lab. But this is where it's very important to me. I still make that connection with Murphy Lab and dementia, because it's something that could happen to me as I grow older. So, like a bigger chance of it. So, that changed which guitar that I wanted to buy. So instead of, I need the 1957 VOS, I realized there's one store in Edmonton that has the ultralight Murphy Lab treatment on a 1957. The only other way, because they don't make that anymore, the only other way to get it would be to do a custom order, the made to measure, which would mean it would be like 6 months to a year probably to get that guitar. I don't know. Maybe it's less if you go to the Gibson garage, but it would be a lot more expensive. So I started selling my guitars, which was, there's a lot of really nice people out there, but there are a lot of just absolute assholes online that will just message you over and 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 over different things. I've had people, I'll make a separate video on it, but I've had people say, like, say if I listed a guitar at $3,000, and they'd be like, well, would you take $2,800 cash? Like, you know what? It's gonna get me closer to it. It's $200 bath. I've spent more than $3,000 on the guitar. You know what? That's fine. And the person would show up with a guitar in hand to my door and go, hey, yeah, I was like, what's with the guitar? Did you buy another guitar and you don't want to leave it in your car or something like that? No, you're going to love this. I want to do a straight trade for it. Get out of my house. You're coming to my house, giving you my address, you're coming to my house. We made an agreement on cash. I said no trade. I had that. That's not like a one-time story. That happened a lot. The other thing that happened is people were like, yeah, I'm coming from out of town. They want me to pay for their gas to buy a guitar. They'd show up, say, same scenario, $3,000 guitar, say they made a deal for $2,800 cash. They'd show up with $2,000. Here you go, $2,800. You'd count like you're short $800. Oh, you'll take that though. Take your money, get out of my house. That happened quite a few times. So at that point, when someone comes and tries out a guitar in my house, I have a lot of gear. So I'm exposing them to the amount of gear that I have, but I'm always making it a pleasant experience to, what amp do you want to try out? You know what I mean? Like, so I'm making and tailoring it to their, what they might have at home. So I stopped that. And here's the big thing. So I was going to try and keep selling guitars so I could get this guitar. As long as no one bought it. It had been there for 2 years, but as long as no one bought it beforehand. And then what ended up happening, and I'm not like a big sympathy guy, so I'm not saying this for sympathy. Like I said in another video, and there's a lot of very nice people that said, I hope you feel better or whatever. So I got this weird sickness. I'm 43 years old now. And my mind and my whatever, I still think I'm like 18. So I got sick. There's this weird sickness that's been knocking people out. So I got sick. And it got to the point where I was like, I would lay in bed and then I would be knocked out for hours and I'd wake up at like 2 in the morning sweating to death. And they're just like, well, I need to drink something because I'm dying right now. And all of the recommendations were, you got this, take ibuprofen. So I'm like, okay, well, when I was 18, I'd take 3 ibuprofens. And I would do that they would say oh, do it every 4 to 6 hours. So what I ended up doing was I would take 8 ibuprofens in a day, which beforehand, when I was 18, that's not a problem. But when you're 43 years old, that's stupid. Because what ends up happening, if you do that for 3 days, it'll start to thin out your blood. So I ended up in the hospital because of it. And it's not one of those oh, I feel kind of weird. I was still working. I was at work. And I'm first aid trained, and I started recognizing weird signs of I should not be at work in heavy equipment. And I had this really weird out-of-body experience, and my boss came over, who's also first aid trained, and he thought I was having a stroke. Everyone that saw me, no one let me drive home. I called my wife. She met me at home because I had to take tight clothing off because it's winter, and I had to take this stuff that kept the heat on my body off. Didn't want to do that in front of my boss because I'd have to be naked. That's freaking awkward. So came home. She took me to the hospital. I was hooked up to an IV for a while, and then while I was there, I was so happy that my wife was there. But at the same time, I was like, you know what? I don't think I can keep living my life without having that dream. And it's not that the hospital thought I was dying for a good couple hours, but then when they realized I wasn't dying, it wasn't so serious. But once there was that realization of oh, okay, well, I'm not having a heart attack, I'm not having a stroke, x-rays and blood work, I'm a healthy guy, except I'm not healthy, and it's just something that's going to run its course over probably the next month. So in my mind, I was I can't keep waiting, because what's going to happen is someone is going to buy the guitar that they no longer make in Murphy Lab. I'm going to have to spend all this extra money and do all this extra waiting. I need that guitar. And it wasn't something it's going to bring me back to life. It was, no, you know what? Do it now, because you never know what's going to happen. So I took the money that I had from selling guitars, saved up, and I took some guitars in, and I traded guitars in, and I got this. And while I was there, I went like this. Yep, it's good. I know this is the guitar that I want. That's what I did, because I knew from all of the other Murphy Lab or the other custom shops and stuff like that, I knew that this was a guitar I wanted. Plain and simple. I knew that this was a guitar I wanted. And when I said, hey, can I trade these guitars in? And they're like, oh, it's going to take a while. What do you want to trade it in? And I went and grabbed this, and I gave it to them. So while they were appraising my guitars and stuff like that, I couldn't play this, so I played other guitars, which made me want other guitars. A 1968. It was one in white, which I'm not very fond of, but it was heavy. It was medium, or whatever you want to call it, Murphy aged. And I was like, wow, this feels okay. I'm changing my mind on that anyway. But I got that guitar. And I was shaking. I'm still sick. It's going to take a while for me to get better. So there's probably going to be less videos now because of that, because I don't have the energy and I need rest, and I'm still working. So I played a 1968 that I thought was amazing. Changed my mind on 1968s because I wanted one that I was it's got the 14-degree headstock angle. Maybe that'll take too much tension off and I won't like it as much. Nope, not the case. It doesn't feel like the Epiphones that I played before, so the lack of tension wasn't enough for me to go too much. And then I played a 1954, although it wasn't a gold top, it was finished a darker finish with the wraparound tailpiece. That confirmed that, holy jeez, I want one of those. I played a 1954 custom reissue Stratocaster. Oh god, I want one of those. And I played a 1963 Les Paul Custom. It was an ebony with the Murphy Lab treatment. That's, I think that price, what they're asking price range wise, just because it's a custom order to be ebony, it's a little too far for me. So I'm trying to convince myself, 1963 in white. It's okay to own a white guitar. So, I own my dream guitar now, and I am so blown away with how it feels. There's not a chance I can sit here and go like, the look of it and the fact that I've wanted it all my life. You know what I mean? Like it's part and parcel with that guitar, always will be, but it feels fantastic. It feels like my other guitars, but you know what I mean? Like it feels different. It's heavier. It's solid mahogany. There's no maple cap on it. But to cap things off, and if I imagine things when I bought that guitar, like here's how I thought the day would go. Yeah, get the guitar. They'd either tell me, no, we're not going to do that, or something to that effect. But I figured if I got that guitar, I'd come home and I'd play it. And my wife would come home and she would go, get out of the freaking basement. And, you know what I mean? Like, stop playing guitar. You've been playing guitar for 73 hours or something silly like that. I thought I would come home, play it. But here's the thing. I had more guitars than I was going to trade in. And I was so overwhelmed. Like, I was shaking still. A little tearing up, but a lot of that was sickness. So I came home. I did the unboxing portion for the video because I needed it out of the box because they put it in the box for me. And it was just so overwhelmed that I was like, you know what? I gotta get out of the house. I gotta get some fresh air in me. I gotta drink some water. So I took my guitars into Stang Guitars in Edmonton, and I traded those guitars in. And oh my god, like when he told me how much he was giving me for those guitars, I was like, why did I take my other guitars to Long and McQuaid? It's because they don't make that guitar. You couldn't order that guitar. But I ended up ordering a 1968 Les Paul Custom ultralight Murphy Lab aging. And I still have money left over and credit left over. And I'm still thinking of the next guitar to get. But I think once I get the next guitar, I have to take a break because I have so many dreams in my basement studio here, and I don't know if I can keep getting them because I don't want them to not feel as special. If that makes any sense to you, I don't want to dilute the magic, so I need some time after I get the next one. This has been long. And I have to edit this. I'm very sorry if you've actually watched this video. But it is, there's some people that will watch the whole thing and they're never going to get their time back for it. But, it's interesting to some people. And it sums up 30 years of a big part of my life. And I'm still just in shock that I own this. But there is one thing that I think I forgot to say here. So, I remember Paul Simon on the Muppets. Played Long, Long Day. And that's my favorite Paul Simon song. Well, no, it's my second favorite Paul Simon song. You Can Call Me Al. I hear that and I think vacation. My body relaxes. That's what I should do. Anyway, I saw him there. I thought he had a Les Paul Custom. And I was like, wow, Paul Simon's a genius. And it's actually like an L5 Custom or something like that. Completely different. But that's it. That's all I got to say. I want to play that guitar now. Thanks for watching.